I'm actually very excited about this episode. Jackie, first and foremost, thank you for coming on Easy Talk. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So let's talk about this weekend first, because we were at the Shamrock FC events on Friday and the UFC on Saturday. So I want to know, are you relatively new to MMA? Is this like a sport you've been watching and you're excited about it? Because I saw you at both events. You were having a blast.
Yeah, well, okay, so funny story. So my brothers were all into WWE growing up. So I take it all the way back to when I was like 5 years old, you know, playing video games, watching them do stuff. I always wanted to be the girl in the ring. Like I remember seeing like, I mean, I didn't want to be China, but the power China had, okay? And just like that always interested me, the power of the girls in that environment. And, you know, looking at that. And then as I got older, watching, you know, my buddies get into MMA, and MMA is big, you know, where I work. And so getting back into that and starting to go to the fights more, I was like, ooh, I really like this environment. And I just, thrive off of it. Just really good energy, you know, being there.
I always say that, you know, live sports are great. Like I enjoy watching live football, live baseball. It's great. But until you watch live fights, then you get like a newfound appreciation for it, because like all the little shots, like the jabs, the crosses, the leg kicks that you don't necessarily hear or feel like on the big screen, when you're at a live event and you hear a leg kick, like the thud of a shin, or even if they block a hook and you hear like the leather hit flesh, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is like intense.
I know. Yeah, it's wild. And I will tell you, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Like when I was, you know, ringing as a ring girl, the officiaries would come out. I'd be like, why'd you make that call? And they would sit down and explain all the different rules to me, which is pretty cool, because I'm like, I really don't understand all of this, but the intensity behind it.
I can see like someone getting knocked out. Jackie's like, why'd you stop the fight?
Yeah, I was like, well, hold on. Yeah.
The ref's like, lady, he was about to die. Oh, I didn't see blood.
Well, you know, they were teaching me there's like seconds you have to count. And I'm like, all right, there is so much to this, but I love learning. So
I didn't hear the bell.
We're here for it.
I'm glad. I always like seeing people that, so full disclosure, we went to high school together, and, you know, we've known each other for some time now, but it's always nice that when I see people that I've known for a long time kind of assimilate or get to know a little bit more of my world, it always feels good. It makes you feel a little less weird or ostracized. Because like everyone else seems like so normal, and then I'm over here like, yeah, violence. Yeah, let's fucking do it.
I feel like that as a female too when I go there, and I'm on there screaming. But it's a fun time.
So you actually reached out to me. Speaking of the ring carding girl, ring carding. You actually reached out to me because you were like, hey, like this is something I really want to do. It looks like a lot of fun, and I got you in contact with Whitney McAllister, and then I saw you at like the very next Shamrock, or like 2 Shamrocks after that. Can you just briefly discuss like why you wanted to do that to begin with? Was it, you know, putting on the uniform? Was it being around the fights? Was it just, you know, kind of like the limelight? What was the attraction of that?
It's all of it. Like I mentioned, when I was a kid, like for some reason, I just always wanted to be like a female in that environment. I just loved it. And, you know, getting into the fitness realm and, you know, starting to work on my physique and getting back into like bodybuilding and all of those things, it was something that was like interesting to me, because, you know, you look at females that go for like bikini competitions and stuff like that, which I don't really have a drive to do that. But this is something, it's like you work hard on your physique, you get to go enjoy a sporting event like that. You get to see all your friends, and, you know, a lot of my coworkers go there, and it's just a really cool environment. And I was like, that is something I want to do. And it was just a really cool experience being able to do that.
You know, it was cool seeing you out there.
Yeah,
you looked like you were having fun.
Oh, yeah. And it's not even like, I mean, it's technically you're working, but you're not working. It's way too fun.
That's how I feel about fighting. Like, I'm getting paid, but am I really working for this?
One thing they didn't tell me, though, you wore white shoes, and then they didn't say, oh, by the way, you're probably going to get blood on your shoes. That was one thing no one told me about. So
I actually, fun fact, I actually got a suit ruined. I bought a suit, and we were sitting cage side, and I forget who it was, but someone had busted their nose like in the very first round, and I like amateur, and I felt kind of bad for the guy. But he gets hit with a cross, and I mean all over my new suit, like in a strip, and everyone around me is like, "Oh, that's so awesome! Like, aren't you so excited?" And I am fucking livid. I'm like, "Are you? I just bought this." I was so pissed off. So like everyone else is like going crazy, and I'm just like,
you're like, huh? Yeah.
By the way, these tickets were not cheap. Anyway. You were briefly discussing kind of getting back into your physique and working out. A big reason why I brought you on, and we've had lengthy discussions about this prior, was you have a very intimate story with the darker and lighter sides of personal fitness. I wanted to kind of bring it back from when I first met you back in high school, to kind of illustrate the story properly. You were the homecoming queen.
Mm-hmm.
You were cheerleader, like from everybody's perspective, the typical popular loved woman, right? Now, can you navigate me how you went from that to
Mm-hmm.
some of the darker times in your life that allowed for the weight gain?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was almost like a culture shock. I remember leaving high school because high school was just like so fun and like you said, I was big into cheerleading. I was, had like a lot of friend group at school. And it was like a culture shock when you leave high school, right? You're like, okay, now I'm in the real world and like what am I doing here? And so at that time, I was in a long-term relationship. The relationship ended up being for like 6, 7 years or so. And it traumatically ended. I mean, long story short, I lost my boyfriend and my best friend. You can kind of connect the two there. And we had bought a house together. It was a whole thing. Our families helped us like redo the house. So it basically ended up being kind of like almost like a divorce. But it was such a shock to me because I lost my best friend and my boyfriend at the time. And so it just that was just a shock and like, okay, what is life now? Like you're by yourself. And that's when I started getting into the party scene because it was back to like that environment where you're like happy and everyone's having fun and you're drinking and you get to go out and enjoy the music and kind of numbs you in a sense, when you're out drinking. And so that really just kind of threw me back into like, I think I started bartending again around that time and like threw me back into the alcohol and the drinking world, which is where I just stopped taking care of myself. Like I just gained a bunch of weight, and then just partied my life away for 4-5 years, I would say.
When you say gain a bunch of weight,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. My mom always, when she was alive, God bless her soul, would always tell me like, never talk about a woman's age or her weight.
You can ask me.
Sorry, Mom. So when you say you
Yeah.
gained a bunch of weight, numerically, what are we talking about here? Because you're about what, like 5'2", 5'3"?
I'm 5'2".
5'2",
Yeah,
okay.
barely 5'2". I claim 5'2". But I'll tell you, when the relationship ended, I was depressed for about 30 days. I mean, I was going to work and then sleeping. And I immediately lost, I think, like 20 pounds in like a matter of a couple weeks. So when the relationship ended, I think I was at like 125, which is very small for me. I'm always kind of a just curvier female. And I think I topped out at probably 210.
Oh my God.
After like a 3 or 4 year span. So it was, I mean, yeah, it was a definite change. Typically, like right now I'm around 140. So that is normal for me. So like I said, I lost weight, but then I gained that and some. So it was definitely a difference.
But you're also like more fit than you are now.
Yes.
You are more fit than you were then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And is that the goal? Like when you think about your body now, is there a specific figure that you're looking for, a specific number you're trying to hit, or just a specific lifestyle you're trying to live?
So in the beginning, it was the number. Like I was like, I got to get back to 125, And so I am a nutrition coach now, and I coach a lot of females. And so when people come to me with the same mindset, I'm like, take the number away, because like where I was at 125 and where I'm at now, completely different body types. Mm-hmm. And it's all about muscle tissue, and I can get into the nitty gritty, but there's a lot of different factors in your body composition. And so it wasn't really about the number. Now that I look at things, it's about how I feel in my clothes, how I feel confidently, and how I feel in photos and all of those things. And just like more so you are what you eat, it always comes down to like, so for me, a lot of it is just mindset. And like when I'm on nutrition, when I'm on fitness, I feel good, I'm mentally clear, like all of that. So
I recently stopped fighting or competing, and I still train for my own livelihood. But one of the weirdest moments of my life was when I took the scale, which I had been living my life by ever since I was 13. I was either cutting weight for wrestling or cutting weight for fighting, or if I wasn't cutting weight, I was always monitoring my weight. Mm-hmm. There was always, every time I had a meal, every time I drank liquids or whatever I was doing, I was always cognizant of like, okay, well, a liter is like 2.8 pounds or something like that. So like, if I drank a whole liter of water, I'm going to gain 2.8 pounds. Yeah. This was like my mentality, how dumb I was with this. So that means I'm going to have to work out later to what? Lose water? I was always tying my body type to a number, which only after I'm out of it do I realize how really unhealthy that was. I liked the way I looked. It gave me a body that I enjoyed, but would I have called myself healthy, which is such a weird thing to say, because like I was competing at a high level. But no, I wasn't healthy. Yeah. I feel better now. Like when I'm running, when I'm lifting, when I'm doing all of these things, I've never been stronger. I've never been like a better cardio. my lifestyle, I sleep better now.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane to think how I was kind of pushing the red for so long, and only after it was all done did I realize like probably the damage I was doing.
Yeah, I always think about like I remember, in high school being around, a lot of the wrestlers and things of them like bringing trash cans to like spit in the trash cans to cut weight, and I just think about like that is a lifelong span that you've had with it. I mean,
It's gotten better. It's
yeah.
gotten better in time. You know what the problem was? We were just freaking dumb.
Yeah.
So we had meathead coaches. No offense. No offense. I should say. They taught us what they knew. They taught us what they knew. But it was a lot of bro science. I'll give you a prime example actually. I remember when I was in high school wrestling, I had a coach who was like for 1 year, my freshman year. He told me that I needed to limit how long my showers were because my skin would soak up water from my shower. The irony in that is fast forward 10 years, the way I used to cut weight or the way I liked cutting weight was hot water baths.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to submerge my head. So like saunas were a lot more difficult for me because my head would get hot. So I just thought to myself, like the irony in this, like this guy a decade ago was telling me the opposite of how I'm cutting weight now. So we had like over time better methods in cutting weight. Like in high school, it was fast, don't eat, don't drink, basically exist in the realm of misery, which made you kind of dread wrestling season, to be honest with you. I said it to Mike Rogers. I'm glad I did wrestling, but I wouldn't do it again. Or at the very least, I wouldn't do it the same way I did. And then when I got into fighting and weight cutting was much more like, there was more research going into it, more science that was like readily available. Then it was like, oh, I actually want a water load because like my fat cells basically are water soluble. I actually want to be eating as much as I can throughout the day, not just like one big meal so that I can stimulate my metabolism. It was like we were doing everything wrong.
Yes. And that's terrible because they teach you that at a young age. So like even when I was cheerleading, like I would think about this, like the stretches we would do prior to going to lift, like were not even the same like muscle areas we were using. Like, I mean, it's wild to think about. I'm like, you just didn't have the knowledge back then, I guess.
I don't blame them. They taught what they thought they knew.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So
yes.
I don't blame the individuals. I just look back with like this sense of irony and like thinking, oh my God, well, trial and error is a bitch.
Very much.
So you were saying that after this like tumultuous time in your life, over the course of 3 to 4 years is when you kind of gained this weight. If I might ask, during this time, obviously you're cognizant of like the body changing. What was going through your head? Like, were you thinking, I don't care? Were you thinking, it's okay, like if it takes me a month to put on, it'll take me a month to get off? Like, what was the mindset going in? And then ultimately, what was like that snapping moment where you were like, okay, enough is enough?
So kind of to walk you through it. So I was single for about 3 months. And then being in the bar scene, jumped into another relationship because that's just what I was used to. Like I was with someone for 6 years, you just get into another one.
What do you didn't know how to be alone? Like, what do you mean by that?
I guess. I mean, yeah, it was very much, I had never lived by myself. I was in that relationship from 17 years old till 24, 25.
Oh my God.
So like at that point you're like, I went to being the first one to probably get married to I have never been married, right? And all my friends now have kids and they're married. And so it was like a total shift of like, I got to get back into another relationship. And that's just kind of how my mind was. And I was partying so much. And so I met someone in the party scene. And so I jumped into another relationship there, which I ended up being in that relationship for 5 years, which was an extremely toxic one. And while I was in it, you were just kind of like, I was kind of oblivious, I guess, to my body. Like, it really was. I was just enjoying going out and partying. We were going to, lake property on the weekends where you're drinking and partying even more. So I just wasn't really aware of it.
Were any of your friends making comments?
No, my high school best friends, which are still my best friends, never made never said a word about it. They were very kind to me. People in my family very much said comments to me. People treated me differently, 1,000%.
What does that mean when you say they treated you differently?
You just got a lot of like, it was just like a concerning tone people would have with you. Like, honey, are you taking care of yourself? Or like, just a different way people talk to you, or just
questions that you never previously heard.
I'm very aware of people's energy. And so I could tell people's energy shifted, or like they would, they just kind of treated you differently. I don't know really how to express it. Like, I can tell you a story about one where it very much treated me differently, and this was kind of like an eye-opening moment for me. I was probably at almost my heaviest at this point, and I was at a wedding reception kind of thing. And it was a bunch of us in a house, and it was just, we were all wearing swimsuits, and it was someone we went to high school with. I'll just put there. And I was walking around in a swimsuit, and I caught this person recording me on their phone, laughing at me as I was walking past. And yeah, and I remember making the eye contact, and at that point, I had no backbone at that specific time in my life. I had no backbone.
This was a friend.
Yes. And I saw it, and I knew immediately what was happening. He was sending it to my ex-boyfriend because they were friends. And so I pulled myself out of the situation. I went upstairs, and I sent this, like, passively aggressive text, like, hey, next time you want to record me, probably should not make it as obvious as you did. And that was kind of like a moment for me. I was like, okay, now I know people are making fun of me. Like, I can see people are talking behind my back. And, like, at that point, I mean, I'd gained so much weight. It's like...
Yeah, but if I may, like,
yeah.
there's a way to kind of if these people are actually friends.
Right.
If I have a friend and I see them living a lifestyle that's, like, not conducive to living a long lifestyle, if I'm their friend, I'm more empathetic.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, if I may, and I might be overstepping, this doesn't sound like a friend.
No,
this
absolutely it was not. No.
Okay. So,
no.
sense this, that
yes.
this person is no longer in your life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Probably for the best. Okay.
I see them sometimes. But, well, the funny thing is, this is kind of goes back to, like, shifting from who I was to then who I was then to now who I am now. The first person to come after me when I got skinny again was the same person. And I remember being like, do you not remember this situation? Like,
are you serious?
So that was a total, like...
Did you point it out?
No, I was just like, this is not worth my energy. Like, I've come to the point where I'm just like, hey, I don't talk to anybody that messes with my peace. So I just kind of left it. And it was one of those things that, like, you absolutely see how people treat you differently when you're one way or another.
I like that quote. I don't mess with anyone who messes with my peace.
Oh, yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah. I'll go off on people, on the regular, but some people it's just not worth it. So
you're at this, like, wedding.
It was like we went on a vacation. It was a wedding type week. It was a destination. Yeah.
Destination wedding. Okay, got you. That makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then by this moment, someone's recording you, and you're like, "Oh my God!" Like, not only are they not being upfront about it, they're, like, actively making fun of me.
Yes.
So what was that transition like? So, like, it hits you. What are you doing? The very next day you're dieting. The very next day you get a gym membership because, like,
yeah.
I know a lot of people that say they want to get into whatever it is, like physical fitness of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize this because, like, when I was growing up, I had an older brother and he played football. So, like, he kind of got me into the weight room.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that, like, some of the things that I learned young by being around him, some people never learn, like, how to properly go to a gym, proper lifts, stretches beforehand, like, when you're going in, what muscle groups to target, like, what is the goal, right? And, like, how to properly use a gym. I just assumed that this was, like, readily available knowledge. It wasn't until I got a little older and, like, I had some friends that used to come up to me and be like, hey, like, I want to lose some weight. Can I go lift with you? And it was always such a weird question because I was like, yeah, I mean, you can lift with me, but, like, don't you know how to lift? Like, why do you have to lift with me?
Yeah.
Like, I'll just tell you my routine and go do it. And then it clicked, like, oh, you have no idea. Like, I'll say push press. And you're like, are we pushing or are we pressing? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, see, I didn't learn that till I was probably like 25, 26.
So you had this epiphanous moment. You're like, okay, I need to change my life. What is step one?
Well, I hate to say that wasn't my epiphanous moment. That was not.
Oh.
The next day, I mean, I just continued life. It was just, I was so oblivious to those things that, like, it was just, I was numb from it. I was very depressed, very high on anxiety. My doctor put me on so much medication. It was ridiculous. Like, I very much was against that. But I was just kind of numb to everything. So I just continued living the lifestyle I was.
You were going to a doctor for what reason? Like,
it was just my PCP. I told her I was kind of stressed, and she just threw.
I'm Neanderthal. I don't know what a PCP is.
Oh, you're a primary care physician.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I worked in a couple of doctors' offices.
I don't know if you know this, but I've been hit in the head a lot.
My primary, just like your generic doctor.
Okay.
She just
and they were like, "Here's some pills."
Yeah, she just threw me on antidepressants, and then kept trying to up them for 5 years. It was Instead of being like, honey, here's some nutrition. This is why I'm very much against a lot of this stuff.
Here's a diet plan. Here's a sleep regimen. Yes. Here's a lifestyle change option.
Yeah, and here's another fun full circle. So as soon as I lost my weight and went back to see her, she asked me how I lost my weight and asked me to help her. And I was like, hey, remember when you got me on these prescription pills and then I
You're lying.
had to basically withdraw from them? Yeah. It was just Isn't it wild?
That is insanity.
Yeah.
It's a bad Yelp review for that lady.
Yeah. Yeah. She's not my doctor anymore.
So if that wasn't the epiphanous moment, you had
Yes.
this like traumatic experience where
Yes.
you were like, "Are you fucking kidding me, dude?" What was the one where you're like, I gotta change something?
So that was in the summertime. Then fast forward about 6 months later, it was Christmas time. And Christmas, you take a lot of photos. And I was tagged in a photo on Christmas. And I remember seeing it the next day. And I opened my Facebook because, you get notified, you get tagged in a photo. I opened my Facebook and I was like, I don't even recognize the person in that photo. That was truly what it was. Like, I was like, I'm going to untag myself from this photo. And that moment was like, this is what people see of me. And I don't even like see myself as that person. That was a moment I was like, this is not the life I want to live. And so I I remember around that time, like one time bending over to tie my shoe and I like ran out of breath. And I was like, who am I? I am 20 at the time. I think it was like 27 years old. And I was like, what is this life? This is not me. And so that was kind of that moment where like, I'm like, something's got to change. So it was like January 17th. I took my first I remember my transformation photo for my journey. And that was kind of when I just never stopped.
So I was going to ask you about that because you now currently are employed at Phorm. And I believe, if I'm correct, during this transformation period in your life, you also began working there as well, correct?
Somewhat, yes. It was I started my journey really 2019 and then started working at Phorm March of 2020. Okay. So I was about 50 pounds lost at that point. I've lost 80 total right now. Or overall. So I was about 50 pounds probably lost at that point when I joined.
And how was it like transitioning? Because I oftentimes say that like your lifestyle, I can resonate or I have empathy for some of these people that are like, I work the office job, this, that, or the other. I still subscribe to get your ass up and move. Yeah. Like you can do it, even if it's just an hour a day. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be a day. Like 3 or 4 days a week. You can do it. If it's a priority, you'll make time for it.
Yes, absolutely.
But I can also agree that like, if you're out and about, your job is a little bit more labor intensive. Maybe it's a little easier to do some of these things instead of like sitting down 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. When you're starting to work at Phorm while simultaneously going through this transformation, what was that like? Because now not only are you doing this for your own personal benefit, but then everyone around you seems to be like on the same page, seems to have similar goals. And I guess the question that I'm kind of asking in a roundabout way is, they oftentimes say like birds of a feather flock together, or, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. Yeah. But I oftentimes say like your work environment is where you spend the majority of your time. Oh, yeah. So like if you're working at a bar, chances are you drink. If you work at a library, chances are you read. And you tend to work at Phorm, so chances are you're into self-improvement and your own bodily autonomy. So just talk to me about that, like that transition of like you're going through this transformation and you changed your employer and your employment. How are they going hand in hand?
Yeah, so I would tell you, prior to working at Phorm, I worked at Cummins Diesel, and I was one of like 50 men. There was like 3 females maybe there. And that environment was not fitness friendly whatsoever. I mean, the guys would come in with Chinese food, and I would literally sit next to them like, can I look at the Chinese food? Because I'm not going to eat this today. But it was very different because in that environment, I was like the freak of the nature, right? Like, I'm like, oh my God, she's bringing her own food. Like, who is this girl? She's not eating out. Like, she's working. She's going on walks during her lunch. Like, I was like the freak of nature in that environment. And then you go to Phorm where it's like people are pushing you. Like, I mean, we would have once a week team workouts where it was like workouts I would never have done a day in my life had the team not pushed me to do it. And so it was very much like just very uplifting environment because everyone is working to get better. So it pushed my limits. So like where I started off there, I thought I was like head honcho in my fitness. I thought I was like the peak at what I was going to be when really when I joined there and I look back, I was like nowhere near where I like my capacity that I could be at. And so it was just it's a very unique environment when people are pushing you to continue to be your best.
What was the reaction to your friends and family? Because obviously they see you kind of go up to the peak and now they see you kind of going down towards the valley. Mm-hmm. What was the reception?
Like when I started working at Phorm? Like
no, more like when you decided to transform your life and your body from when you were at your absolute lowest point, which is it's ironic because it's your highest point. Sorry, that's a bad joke.
That was actually a really good joke. I enjoyed that one. Please. No,
My
please.
bad.
You won't hurt.
I'm trying to be like sympathetic here. We were joking earlier, like, oh my God. Okay, you were fat.
It's okay. We can say it. We accept it.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
If it makes you feel better, this is actually the fattest I've ever been in my life. So I'm currently going through my own transformation.
You look great.
I'm peaking in more ways than one.
Oh my gosh.
So you're slowly changing your life. Is the reaction? Are they acknowledging it? Are they like kind of rooting for you? What is?
Yeah. So my family absolutely, like, they were just, I mean, blown away. They still compliment me on the regular, like how proud they are of me. And it's really cool because, like, this is where I tell people all the time on my team, I'm like, you are also leading by example for other people. So for instance, my sister-in-law has lost 100 pounds now.
Oh, no shit.
And like, it's just when you start something and then other people see that you're capable of doing it, like, I'm not taking away from how much work she's done. Like, I don't even know if I influenced her at all, but you know what I mean? It's just like, you start to see people around you start understanding they can do it too. And so it's very cool to see that stuff happen. I will also tell you there, friends and family comments been made of like, don't you feel so much better now? Like, almost like kind of pushing it down, like, in like a degrading way. I get that a lot too. And it's like, aren't you glad you're skinny? And like those kind of comments. And I'm like, yeah, totally. So you get kind of both sides of the spectrum there.
It's interesting to see that you kind of make light of it, but
yeah.
I mean, it was the darkest moment in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like now that you're on the other side, so to speak, you kind of look back on it with a little bit more less gravity, or do you think maybe because life has gotten so good that you look at it as like a lesson learned? Because there are a lot of people that go through traumatic experiences, and I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, like, it can go both ways, right? It can cripple someone and prevent them from ever bettering themselves, or you've seen people use it as fuel, and like now it kind of like lights the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question is, what is that for you? Obviously, it's not crippling you, but do you look back at it as a lesson learned? I'll ask that question a little bit better. Do you fear going back, or do you know you'll never go back?
Ooh, I would say it's a mixture of both, because I would love to say that experience I had that threw me into, the partying life was the most traumatic, but there's been other traumatic experiences. And those were all lessons, but at the time I wasn't aware of them being lessons. It was just like, I was on the other side where it was like, oh, life sucks. I'm just going to take life for what it is, and life's going to be shit. And that was kind of the moments that I would have throughout it was like, this is what life is. And this is just, I'm getting older. I'm a female. Our bodies change. Life changes. Life sucks. Like, that was just the mentality I had for a long time. And then now being on the other side of things, where now I look at anything that poor that may be happening, any bad situation, I'm like, cool, it's a lesson to learn. Like, tomorrow's a new day. Like, it's a totally different perspective I have now. And I'm absolutely, I would say, fearful of going back to where I was, but I know for a fact I will never go back, because I mean, across my journey, I lost a total of 80 pounds now. It was probably 3 years ago when I hit the 80-pound mark. And I've probably, of course, of the 3 years, maybe gained 10 pounds, lost 10 pounds. And like, there's no way that, like, even at the peak of gaining 10 pounds, I'm like, I can't go further than that. Like, there's no way I would ever let myself get back into that situation.
We were discussing earlier the gentleman that was recording you when you were at not your brightest moment. And then later, when you've kind of eclipsed this transformation, he's kind of hollering at you.
Yes.
I want to be careful how I ask these questions, because obviously the genders have like a difference of perspective when it comes to like dating or being attracted to the opposite sex, or what they do to try to, what are the kids call it now? Getting it in. I'm trying here, Jackie. You went from, the popular girl in high school, which a lot of guys think have life easy, right? This is the male perspective. Like, oh, she's fawned over by all men. All the women want to be her. All the men want to be with her. Then you went through this portion of your life where it sounded like there were things that happened that you never thought could happen. Mm-hmm. And it probably rattled you. Mm-hmm. So then you get to like this heavier point, and obviously male attention is probably, I don't want to assume, at an all-time low. Can you navigate those waters for me? What that's like for you, like for your own, like, because I'll tell you what, if I'm having a shitty day and my wife tells me baby, you look so good right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. It brightens me up.
As it should.
As it should, right? But like, there's something to be said about like outside affirmation. Like you might have a poopy day and you might think like, this wasn't my greatest outfit or whatever. But if someone shows you like a little affection, like, hey, you look great, or oh my God, nice smile or whatever, it does brighten up your day. But the absence of that can also reinforce negative stereotypes. Like I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this. No one else is saying that I'm not. So I'm only going to kind of dwell in my own little sorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't want to sound like egotistical, excuse me, or anything
Please
of that
do.
matter. But like, you absolutely, I mean, you get worth from people affirming to you, right? Like people giving you compliments, and people treat you differently when you see yourself worthy. Like I would put it that way. When I was in high school and all these things, I felt completely worthy. Like I was thriving. And so people treat you differently when you're thriving. You get more attention when that happens. And then when you're not easy on the eyes and you can tell when you look at me that I'm unhealthy mentally, physically, all of those things, people see you as invisible. Truth of the matter. Like definitely went from like walking into the bar and being able to just talk to anyone to walking to the bar and no one even looks at you. Like definitely a different perspective. And it almost makes you kind of like hate humanity in a sense, because you're like, wow, you're treating me this way. But it also, I really think it comes down to like everything's mirrored. How I feel about myself is how other people are going to perceive me. Like you have, I think there's a couple sides to the coin, right? People perceive you a certain way when you feel worthy and confident of yourself. But I also, in the sense there's power behind, having a healthy lifestyle and believing in yourself and beauty and femininity and all of those things.
It's interesting that you say like, you kind of hate humanity with regards to like how the opposite sex can either be attracted to you or not attracted to you. I would actually make the argument that nothing has changed. It's only now, like before you were ignorant to it because you just assumed that was your life.
Yeah.
That's all you knew. And then when it was taken from you, not taken from you, but when it was no longer there, it's the age old saying, right? You only know what you have when you lose it. So it's like you were navigating this world under a different purview. And then when you gain that weight, that outside affirmation, it's gone now. So now you can see it. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize what I had until it's gone. So now when you regain it, I don't know if it's changed. I think you're just more wise to it now. Now you probably know what it is. I'll give you a prime example. When we were going out with, when I was like younger or whatever, and this is a guy's perspective, so bear with me. When we would go out, I always told my friends, like, never take the girl home who's willing to meet you and go home with you on that same night. And everyone else thought that I was crazy for saying that. I was like, gentlemen, that doesn't mean that you are like this knight in shining armor, like this Giga Chad. It shows you how low the barrier to entry for this woman is. Yeah. It's not that you're something special. It's that her standards are so low. Why would you be willing to do that? Like, if it's not you, it's going to be somebody else. And is that really what you want to do with your life? Right. I would say the same thing kind of happens for women. It's like, you'll go to a bar, and if you're an attractive young woman, you're going to get fawned over by a lot of men. And if that's not necessarily the case, forgive me, ladies, I'm navigating these waters as best as I can. If that's not necessarily the case, you might not necessarily have that same experience. It doesn't make it bad or good, like lesser or greater. It just simply is. And I don't necessarily look at that as like, men are trash or women are bad. It's just that's the landscape. Navigate it accordingly. Yeah. So I want to be careful, because I don't want to make it sound like, life was easy for you and all these other things, because I know it's not. And there's a lot of men groups that kind of hate women. And this is kind of like the narrative, like, oh, she's the hot young girl, like life is just afforded to her on a silver platter. But here you are, you've kind of seen the full spectrum. So looking back, are there relationships or interactions that you didn't necessarily see the value of at the time, and now only in hindsight do you realize, like, maybe there was a friend that was trying to be that rock to kind of like support you, or were there people around you that were kind of siphoning energy from you and you just didn't really recognize it?
Yeah, I would. So to be completely honest, after I got out of these relationships, I dated maybe like 2 or 3 people, and I don't really date. I don't find interest in the culture nowadays, because it's very much, now I have this perspective of like, I see people how they treat you, and I see people that only want certain things or only want you for the people you're around, or just that kind of situation of the idea of things, if you may. And it's not the culture I very much enjoy, so I don't really date a lot because it's just not interesting to me. And
what is a culture that would be interesting to you?
It's a hookup culture. That's what we're in nowadays.
And that's not what you're into.
And no, absolutely not my cup of tea.
If I by the way, I'm this is coming from a guy who's been off the game for a little while. Why don't you just let that be known? Is there no men that want relationships?
It's just a weird. Well, I'm over 30, so now you get the it's a lot of divorce with kids, which is totally cool. But I've never been married, don't have kids, and it's like you either get the pool of people that are just now re-entering life for the first time after a long relationship and relearning themselves, and it's like you kind of got to like pull somebody along, or it's someone that's just been in the hookup culture for their entire life and never gotten
and they're
married.
Still doing it at 30?
Yeah.
Jesus
I mean,
Christ.
It's a I don't know what the word I want to use. It's a life out there. It's a party.
I got to be honest with you. From all my single friends and the horrid stories I hear, it seems like it's bad. If I may, I don't know the solution to this, because like I talk to my guy friends and they're talking about the same thing that you're saying. Like, it's hookup culture. I'm like, hold up now. I've never heard guys complaining about hookup culture. And then you talk to women and they're complaining about the same thing, hookup culture. And I'm just like, you guys are both bitching about the same thing. How about we just go out and don't have sex then? Like, am I crazy? You know, it's an option, right? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also environment. Like, where do I go to meet people? I mean, it's still the bar, right? You still go out in those things. I meet people to fights and stuff like that.
You don't date at work?
No.
Don't shit where you eat?
No.
Smart, Jackie.
No. I learned that when I first came in. There was a clause. They're like, you do not date here, and I was like, I don't even want to mess with that when it comes to my career. And it does kind of suck, because a lot of the people that are into the same things I am are in the community and the environment, but it's just not something I don't want to. I'm not mixing the water.
It's also kind of rough though, because like it's tough, right? Because you're surrounded by like-minded individuals that would make you think like, okay, all the guys here are, you know, after the same thing I am. Logic would dictate that we'd have a lot in common, and if we have a lot in common, possible like partners, right?
Yeah.
But then you add the financial aspect to it, and like I said earlier, you don't want to shit where you eat, because like, what if it does go south, and now it's awkward at work and all these things. I low key think that the saving grace will be kind of coming back full circle, and it'll be like speed dating again. Like, that's gonna make a return.
They had speed dating at the, what is it, Mile Garden or whatever, by
8 Mile Garden.
Yeah, in the afternoon.
Is that a thing?
Yeah,
they
had
go?
Speed dating. No, I was.
Why not?
I told my friend Becky, I was like, Becky, we should go. To that.
You could have met your future husband.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Not with that attitude.
I know it's probably me talking into existence, but
is that something you want? Like, okay. So we're at this point of your life now where you seem like you're in a good spot, right?
Yeah.
So then what's the future? Like, what do you want?
So I do want to settle down with someone. I do want to get married, but I am very much, and this is probably something of my own fault, I'm just so at peace. Like, I've been in terrible relationships, and the past 4 years, I've just like, I've dated on and off, and they've just been trash. And so I've just kind of found, I don't mean the people, I mean the relationships, but I've just found peace in where I'm at. And so it's like, for me to want to find somebody, they have to fit into my lifestyle. And I understand that there's like negotiations. It's not like I'm looking for someone perfect. I'm actually looking for the opposite. I want someone that's been through stuff like I have, like understands life, but like, it's just, there's a certain type of person that fits into my lifestyle, and that's just kind of what it is. And so I'm just kind of flowing until I figure it happens.
I don't want to focus on the relationship too much. It's just something that I notice people our age, it's like, it's rough out there, man. It's like a battlefield. And there's like a culmination of this culture war between the genders, right? Like women saying that they don't need no man, and then men hating women. It's just like, what are we doing here, gentlemen? And ladies.
It's very much. Because I mean, like at this point, like I've become so independent that it's like, it's almost like if I start dating someone, I got to learn to be less independent because I want someone to take care of me as a masculine essentially should kind of situation. But it's just it's a very, I don't know. It's like just a weird balance you got to find.
Have you ever thought about taking the romance completely out of it? Meaning, when I first started talking to my wife, first of all, we knew each other in middle school and high school. We didn't start dating until like I was 26, right? But I remember when I reached out to her, I was like, listen, I've known you for a long time, and you've known me for a long time. this is what I am, like, this is what I want, this is what I'm willing to give, this is what I have available to me. Like, you're attractive, you're smart, you're all these things. I basically laid it all out for her. I was like, I want to pursue this. Here's what I have. Like, I almost like
a resume.
Yeah, like I bring to you no criminal record and solid pee-pee. What do you have? You know what I mean? And here we are, married with a kid. So I did something right, Jackie.
I mean, to be completely honest, that's how my personality is. And some men,
no criminal record, solid pee-pee. Yeah.
But it's that I'm direct like that. I'm like, I will tell you first off, if there's somebody I want, I will tell them, like, all right, you want to go get married? Like, let's.
Well, don't start with that.
Like, straight up, right? But like, that's
how about dinner? Dinner?
You just go straight to it.
By like dessert, like, all right, are we getting married? Like, that's a good time.
But that's also a thing. Like, I can come off very
aggressive.
I don't know if it's necessarily aggressive, but I'm just like, so I know what I want. You know what I mean? And like, there's so many different personalities out there in males that like, and the same thing with females. But it's just like, you can be kind of too much sometimes, or I don't know how to really explain it.
I just want to make sure, because you're kind of on the same boat that a lot of my single friends are, both men and women. And I say the same thing to them. I'm like, it's okay to do all the things that you need to do to prepare to be alone, but don't let that preparation hinder you from never being alone.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Like, don't, get kind of caught in that cycle of like, I'm used to doing everything for myself, so like, this is how it's going to be. Because I do, as cliche as it sounds, there's 8 billion people on this planet. You're not going to find the one person for you. I highly doubt that. I think the odds are in your favor, right? As long as you're keeping an eye out. So that kind of leads us to the present day. You work still with Phorm, and you're kind of navigating this. You were saying that you were getting into the nutrition aspect as well, and you're becoming, I mean, if I may, like an influencer on betterment of not just like yourself physically, but also mentally, emotionally. What is the goal with what it is that you're trying to do? Like, are you trying to I asked Jose this. Are you trying to climb the corporate ladder? Are you trying to do something for yourself? Are you trying to do both simultaneously? What does Jackie in 2, 3, 4 years look like?
That's a great question. And to be completely honest, I don't really know. Because if you would ask me that 3 years ago, my idea of where I would have not been where I'm at now. Like, I never in a million years thought that I would have become who I am at this moment, done all the things I've done at this moment, experienced all the things I've experienced. So it's like, I don't even know where the cap is anymore. Like, I just feel like, I don't say that like I'm going to go out and run the world, but like, it's very much like I live day to day. Like, what's the best thing I can do today? Who's the best person I can be today? What can I experience today? And that's what I'm chasing. It's like, I just want to experience life, and where I currently work, like all of that, there's so much that is growing with it, that we're going in so many different areas. Like, who knows where I'll end up? And it's just, I want to find what's got a purpose, like, for me. Like, I really enjoy helping people that have been in the same shoes I was in. Because like when I was in my journey, I didn't really have anyone that was in the fitness industry around me. I didn't have people that like really understood what I was going through. And so I like to be that person for other people. And so that's where I find a lot of my fulfillment in. And so it's learning to do that, but also like experiencing all the cool things. Like, hopefully one day we'll be in UFC. And I want to be a part of that. I'll have to learn all the rules and everything first, but like,
I like that.
It's cool things like that.
I like what you said about like, you feel like you have no cap. I think that's something that people strive for. And it's something that I see a lot of people when they kind of get, I don't want to use the word static, but they get comfortable. They get comfortable because they feel like there's this artificial barrier to like the next level somehow. And I don't think they realize that is all in the head, that like all of these circumstances and things that you're kind of putting above you, it's like, dude, that's all in your own head. I mean, given the right opportunities, given the right circumstances, you can always strive and achieve more. So I like that you're thinking like that.
Yeah, like I don't know where necessarily I'm going, and I don't know necessarily what I want to do, which I'm very much someone that like you need to visualize it to get there. Like I feel like that kind of things really help, but it's like I also just I don't even know what's capable.
During this whole time, has your inner circle stayed the same, changed? What's the lay of the land been?
Yeah, I still have my core best friends I've had since, kindergarten, first grade, that I see on the regular. I would say on the regular every couple months because they all have families and kids, and we get to go to all the fun things. And I'm the fun, cool aunt. But that has not changed. But I do absolutely have friends that are in my core circle from work that are very like-minded, driven females. I have a very good core friendship with them.
Wow, that's good to know. I myself have kept in touch with some of the people from back in the day, but one of the things that does kind of sadden me is that we've drifted apart simply because interests have changed.
Yes, yeah.
I love these guys till the day I die. They knew me when I was little. They knew me before any of my successes or any of my trajectory shifts. So like I have a warm spot in my heart for them, but I would say that it does kind of sadden me to know, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. Like I'm sure everyone has like, the old middle school, high school, childhood friends that maybe you don't necessarily talk to all the time, but that's actually one of the things that social media is awesome about is like,
yes,
I'll kind of tune in and whenever they're doing something good, I'll be like, hey man, like congratulations, or I'm happy for you and all these other things. So there is, you get some warm fuzzies from Facebook and Instagram. It's not all just fucking thong pics. And
I'll tell you though, it is different though, because like, my friends are all in different areas of life, like that I grew up with. Of course, they're all married. They all have multiple children now. And so you go to things like that and you don't necessarily really fit in because I'm like, oh, how's your job? What would you do this weekend? Like, it's completely different than like, are your kids walking? What's your kid's first word? And it's like completely different in that aspect. So not all of our interests are very much aligned. But that's where it's like, I really wholeheartedly feel like if you continue to follow the person you want to be, then you find the people that connect with that along the way. Like you're going to connect with people all over this.
Ben Lawler and the Tom James family will ensure that whether you're purchasing your first custom fit suit or your 50th, the process is unrivaled. With the experience and quality of the Tom James name, allow Ben Lawler to help shape the vision that is your professional brand with a suit that speaks to the conviction in their craft. With fabric sourced here in the US, you'll know quality and craftsmanship are top of class. Like a sculptor examines wet clay before creating a masterpiece, Ben Lawler will walk you through the process of selection, measuring, and stitching to ensure your finished product is a work of art. Putting your trust in Ben is a guarantee that your brand will elevate to the next level. And always remember, you don't get a second chance at a first impression.
So whenever you're ready, you go ahead.
That is the first time. We can start now, by the way. We can start now. That is the first time this is the 11th episode that I had to take a bathroom break in the middle of. I don't know how Joe Rogan does it. I have no idea. 3 hours not getting up to pee or whatever. And like sometimes he's drinking whiskey and coffee and all this other stuff. I'm like, dude, you're insane.
He's got a pickle bucket under his desk.
He's got like a catheter going straight into. He's peeing the whole time. That's the joke.
Probably.
You don't even know.
You silly Willy. I'm not holding it. Oh man, we were discussing earlier about like the next stage of your life, about like whether or not it's with a partner, whether or not it's going to be solo, what have you. But one of the things that you said is like you don't necessarily know where you're going to be professionally, like because Phorm has kind of pulled you in so many different directions and kind of utilized you to the best of your abilities, I'd like to think. But one of the things that we were talking about was like endeavors like not necessarily tied to your profession, like not tied to work. You were expressing interest, or Kayla, our producer, used to stream on Twitch. I don't know, Kayla, if you still do. Yeah, okay. You were talking about like how you've kind of thought about live streaming and possibly, getting into that realm. What would that look like? What are you thinking about it? What is enticing you to that? What's driving you there?
Okay, so when I started getting into social media, it's a wild world out there. We'll just say that. But two years ago, I think it was, Instagram rolled out a bonus feature. So Instagram started paying me. At that time, I made up to like $700 a month, and it was just side stuff I was doing. Like it was just
Instagram, just posting stuff.
Yeah, just posting a reel. Yeah,
I post for free.
Yeah, they just decided to start paying me one day, and I was like, cool. I just kept doing the same thing I was doing, and I was making money off of it. I was like, all right, I'm cool with like this is cool. And then of course they took it back and were like, hey, pay us $10 a month for a blue check mark. Like I was like, no, yeah, we're cool there. But I've seen the money you can make off of like TikTok and Twitch and the world out there, and I've debated, jumping into some of that stuff and being more of like a content creator, because I love creating content in a sense of like I make art on the side and I do that for fulfillment. I love, videography and creating all that stuff. And so it's an art for me that I really do enjoy. But also, like, I enjoy just being, like, my personality. I enjoy talking to people and all those things. So it's like, if I can make money off of that. But do I really want to do that? I don't really know. It's a lot of energy you're putting into it. It's a lot of exposure of your own life that I'm like, there's got to be boundaries at some point.
It must be hard to navigate those waters too, as like you're in the line of work that you do. I mean, you're surrounded by that. I'm sure like there's both men and women that are like influencers, and they're constantly like essentially like cataloging, or I think they call it vlogging their lives, and that you're seeing them necessarily kind of change the trajectory of their lineage because of the money they're making now.
Yes.
How enticing is that money to you? And if I may, and there's no wrong answer to this, Jackie, what drives you? Because for me personally, money drives me. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because I'm a guy. Maybe it's because I grew up poor. I don't know why, but I'm a greedy SOB. But Kayla, attest to this. I'm not like an asshole about it. Like I look at money as like a means to create and generate prosperity for all those around me, right? So like the more money I make, the better life my wife and kids have. The more money I make, the more cool stuff I can do. I can do a podcast, I can hire people. So it's like, I'm not looking to make money to like buy shit because I already have all the shit I want. But I would be lying to you if I told you money is not a main driver in my life. It's honestly one of the main, like the biggest one.
Yeah.
So for you, are you enticed by this? Have you thought about it? Obviously you have. Yeah. What makes you kind of sway one way or the other?
So I wouldn't say I'm really money driven. Like, yeah, I love money. Who doesn't love money? Money makes life easier. Money allows you to have more experience and all of those things. But I am also just a very like, I've been through terrible times in life, and like I just want to enjoy life. And I feel like the more I enjoy life and find my own kind of road, my niche, that money is going to flow to me in the way that it should. And as I continue to do that, I will continue to make more money. And so it's not really like something that's money driven. It's just I want to enjoy what I'm doing. I want to be fulfilled in things I'm doing. It to be a lifestyle where I'm having fun, and then I can still go home and have my own identity outside of work, which is very much something for me. So it's like, yes, I'm money driven in a sense of like things like that, or like, hey, I can make money easier, but I'm still doing things that I enjoy and still putting in, like I said, creating the art and using my story and using my lifestyle. But for it just to be money driven, it wouldn't do anything for me.
Do you like your influence, the lifestyle that you live now, the presence that you have?
There's many times that I just wish I didn't have social media, but it's time and place, and I feel like I've made so many connections through social media, and I get to see things from my family and my nephews, and a lot of different stuff that I feel like social media just has that connection. But there's many times that I'm like, I wish I didn't have social media.
Are you
disappear?
Are you shocked because we're roughly the same age? So like I remember what life was like before social media. Are you shocked to see what it's become?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like Big Brother. I mean,
yeah.
Essentially, like the way people share their stories. Like I don't know. It's come to the like. I hate to talk about this, but like people that cry on camera, I could never. Like, you know what I mean? People
just you wait,
crying.
Jackie.
I will never.
I got some.
Never. Yeah, you can pull it back out.
Bring out the onion.
That's where I cut the boundaries, right? Like there's time and place.
Well, I think it's creating a fictitious lifestyle. I think that we might be the last generation of nuance and authenticity. Because the next generation only knows these tools. They only know social media. They only know clout. They only know clickbaiting and chasing the bag and all these other things. And I've said it many times on this podcast. I have faith in them because I see the way. By the way, I coach wrestling at Afton High School. So like now I get to see some of the kids. Yeah. And it's kind of cool to see them navigating this digital world. But one of the things that does kind of strike me is that these kids are so smart, because they have the world's greatest database at their fingertips, and they're always constantly like checking like for new information and all these other things. And it kind of, it does somewhat worry me, because then think about it. Like you and I know what it was like to like go and meet people.
Yes. And
have a conversation in person. When I was little, you actually went outside to like go play because it wasn't all digital. And I worry, I don't see kids playing outside in my neighborhood. And this wasn't anything that I particularly felt was important when I was little. It was just my lifestyle, right? But now, in the absence of it, similar to the discussion we were having earlier, when I don't see it, I understand the value of it.
Yeah.
And when I see these kids, they are so strong in certain aspects of life and navigating this digital world. But then I see them also with like social tendencies that are a little bit awkward, they a little not accustomed to nonverbal cues. You see a lot of times like these boys, they don't necessarily know how to flirt or interact with women, which is, to their credit, always an awkward time in that stage of your life, but kind of more so. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I wonder if, and I wonder this often, if social media and all this technology is truly a net positive or a net negative.
I think of it in the perspective of like the perfectionism you see on social media, like people thinking that that's reality. Like I think about when you get on social media, you see influencers, right? You see these people that are living these fabulous lifestyle, and a lot of them have had work done to them, and sometimes you don't even know, and you just have this perfect look at people and think that that's how your everyday normal person is. And so that's what I think about. I think about like my nephews growing up and seeing the influencers they see and think that they have to be as good as this person when that's not reality. And you're only seeing one side of their life, right? You're only seeing what they're showing you. And so I feel like that is the total downfall of social media.
Let me ask you a different question. Do you think we should be able to doctor our photos before posting them on social media? Meaning the filters, the lenses, all these other things. Right. I personally, I'm very small government, but I do think that these companies have a role to play in keeping everybody honest. If you're going to allow, and you see it with Snapchat does this now. Like if someone will send you like a snap with a lens on it or a filter, it'll tell you like, here's the lens they used. You could use it yourself. So it's like kind of like you're lying, we're all lying, but we're lying. This is kind of weird. But I would prefer a world like that where at least we know that there's this like filter being put, and the younger generation doesn't think like this, there's like this unattainable sense of reality of like, oh my God, look at all these women that are way more beautiful than I am. They have no flaws whatsoever. And all the men, they see all these other men. They're like, Jesus, everyone's jacked with six packs. Like, why am I not jacked with six pack? It's like, I worry at the reality we're kind of pushing down the next generation because it truly is unattainable. We already reference and know this. Like, how many people are commenting on social media saying that social media is a lie and that people are only posting the good and you're not seeing all the bad? You're actually starting to see a resurgence. I saw earlier, there was an Instagram page of a lady who basically took like very common Instagram poses that women do, but then like on the next frame, like the reality of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I loved it because I was like, oh my gosh, she's basically showing you like, this is how it is when I'm tucking my stomach in and I'm holding my breath and we're at this angle. And this is what it's like if you just, go 3 degrees to the right and I let go of my tummy and what reality looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big thing in the fitness world when you pose. I mean, that's why you do like when you're in a competition, you pose certain ways because it's like you lift your hip up a little bit this way, you turn your waist a little bit this way. You look way different than I'm just standing straight on.
But everyone does it.
Yes.
So we're all it's kind of
we're
like
all just lying.
It's kind of like the thing we were talking about, like it's hookup culture, but both genders are complaining. It's like, is there a solution to this? Am I just bitching about stupid shit?
It's all authenticity. Like the thing that really bothers me, and this is kind of down a different little bit of a rabbit hole, but like the ideology that has come with plastic surgery and all the things that come with that. And I'm not saying I'm against it, but I think about like the next generation of females, like my niece that's growing up. She's about to start middle school. I'm like, I don't want her to look at a female that has had all this work done to her and think that that's how she's supposed to look like as we age, because that's not reality. And so that's what worries me about social media. It's like, I don't want people to strive for the perfection that is not real.
Depression is increasing in the US and the world, while simultaneously we have never had an easier life in terms of technological advancements. And I think it's a correlation, not a causation. I think that as you make life easier and more readily available to people, you introduce less hurdles and less struggle. You make everything about instant gratification and what can I get and how can I feel good now. It's just not going to make for a sturdy people. And I do worry about that.
Yeah.
Jackie, I brought you on to talk about your story, about your transition. And we did that. But one of the things I do want to talk about now is what you're passionate about. And you were talking briefly about how you're a creative mind and you get into art. But what would be something that some people might not necessarily know about you and might be shocked to know about you?
Ooh.
You like listening to rock music while you lift.
I do. I do like metal. I like all kinds of music. Just not a big country fan, unless it's Morgan Wallen. But
isn't it Waylon?
Morgan Wallen? No, it's Morgan Wallen.
Is that Waylon?
No, there's a Wayland Brothers. There was Morgan Wallen.
I'm a little bit of country. I'm a foreign guy, man. I'm a foreign man from a foreign land. I don't know these customs.
I don't know if there's any. I will tell you, I'm a big person on like law of attraction and mindset, and that's not something that people don't know about me because I run with that 24/7. I
don't know what that is.
Highly believe that. You don't know law of attraction? Excuse my
way of saying that. What are you attracted to?
Law of attraction. So essentially, like I'm happy, so I'm going to attract happiness. I think that I'm rich, so I'm going to attract riches. Like that's a law of attraction. Like for instance, I made a post about this for UFC because for the past year, I'm like, I want to get into the ring at UFC. I attracted that. This weekend I was in the ring at UFC. Like there's if you've never read Law of Attraction books, I'm going to get you Law of Attraction books. Life's going to change.
This is the first for me. I don't know the Law of Attraction.
It's very much, Law of Attraction is like attracts like. So you can have Law of Attraction in negative tendency. Like if I'm depressed and I think life sucks, life's going to suck. I'm going to attract.
Okay, that makes sense to me because like you kind of, you form your reality based on how you feel.
Yes.
That makes sense, actually. Okay, then I do agree with this because, like, if I'm a positive person and I attack life positively, then positive things will come at me versus being a negative Nancy. Okay, I also subscribe to the Law of Attraction.
So
I'm with you, girl.
I should have broken down a little bit. I nerd out on it. I've read a bunch of stuff on it, but that is something I wholeheartedly like. When I've worked through my depression and anxiety, was changing the way I perceive things and my perspective on things. And it very much came down to me reading about law of attraction, just learning that, and that's just something I just love. And I can share.
You were talking about like when you were looking for certain partners that you didn't want them to necessarily be like you. You also wanted them to also have gone through some trial and tribulation. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because to me, it sounds like you. Oh, this is gonna sound bad when I say it out loud.
Am I a red flag person?
No. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm not. Well, it sounds like you want damaged goods. So elaborate on when you say like they've gone through some things and they have some traumas, because it can also be seen as like you are someone who wants to fix someone.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're looking for a project.
Yeah. No, because I think like I don't want to say I'm damaged goods, but I've been through a lot of stuff, a lot of things, and so. Me coming out on the other side, I have just a different perspective on life. Like I understand the things I've gone through, and I have experienced life in a sense where like I know how to handle certain situations now. And I feel like when you get into the dating world, some people you talk to or whatever, they've never had anything bad happen to them, which is great. I love that for you. Absolutely love that for you. But I also don't feel like you've experienced life to be able to handle situations, and that God forbid something does happen. So it's like there's just a different personality and perspective in people that have been through things. And it's not like I go out and I'm like, give me the biggest red flag in the room. That's probably who I'm going to be the most attracted to.
Girl, I'd love to feel you. Pedophilia. You're like, Jesus Christ.
No. Absolutely.
God, I gotta be honest with you. I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, if you leave me, I want you to know I'm not doing this shit again. And it's not because I think you're like this majestic creature. Fuck that.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah, I see the dating landscape. Dude, I'm gonna go off on a tangent here.
Go for it.
I've never seen men with worse game, and I've never seen women with less like what do you call that? Like character, not character, when women talk, like, what do you call that? There's a word for it. Personality. Women have like, oh my God, I'm about to get a whole lot of hate.
Sing it.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like women don't fucking try and men don't fucking try. So like men can get away with bare minimums and women are used to bare minimums, so they put forth bare minimums. Maybe that's kind of what you were talking about. But like when I talk to my guy friends about this, they'll be like, yeah, we're fucking, but I'm not really looking for anything else. I'm like, well, then why are you guys fucking?
Yeah.
And they look at me as if they've never been asked that question. Like, what do you mean? Like, why wouldn't we be fucking? I was like, well, you're clearly not getting any sort of like emotional stimulus from this. Like, is this just like a physical thing? I'm like, dude, like, I can't believe I'm saying this. What? Like, there are other methods of releasing tension that don't require the use of another human being.
Like what?
Some people like fishing. They're baiters. Some are master baiters. No, I'm just like,
Oh gosh.
this is why when we had Whitney here, I had so much fucking backlash about like people were messaging me like you're enabling the OnlyFans culture and all this other shit. And I was like, if you are a guy who doesn't watch porn, has never looked at like the female frame in like an objective way or like lusts after women, then you can make a comment. Yeah. Until then, shut the fuck up, because I know that every guy on this planet has done one of the three. Yeah. I'm not here to like listen to your stupid bullshit on your soapbox. I think that what it's going to have to take is people just being fucking honest. And it's like, hey, women are horny, men are horny. And after that initial exchange of bodily fluids, what do we have after? Because what we're realizing, maybe I'm wrong, but what we're realizing in real time is that like it's not sufficient. It's not enough. We have like a deep like cultural hunger for more. Yeah. The previous generation used to think that if I can get my rocks off and just fuck anybody that I want, this somehow will like make me feel fulfilled, and I will live all the lustful fantasies that I have. Well, this generation is in real time proving that to be false. Yeah. Because people have never like the promiscuity of women and the sheer lack of responsibility in men, I would argue, has never been higher in human history. Mm-hmm. When in human history have women been fucking to the way they are now? Because of the pill, because of other methods that they have. And then when have men been able to like just basically forego all the responsibility that comes with child rearing more than now? So we're living in a society where no one gives a fuck. Yeah. Because no one has to give a fuck. And when no one gives a fuck, imagine how empty life is. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're realizing. It's like, guys, oh my God, I'm becoming my dad. Oh my God.
In real time, we see it.
Like... But
there really is.
Find someone you like.
That's really what it is. And that's why I'm like, sometimes I'm just straight up, I'm blunt. I'm like, yo, you want to get married? Like, are we in this or not? Like, that's because it's the nitty gritty of it.
Do you feel like you need marriage? What if you found a guy who's like, checks all the boxes, but he's like, hey, I went through a marriage. I don't want to do this again.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
And you're cool with it.
Yeah, I would like to have a ring because I want to have a ring.
Why?
Because I want to.
Is this like a female fantasy thing?
Owned, yeah.
I want to look owned. I want possess me harder, daddy.
Yes. I want to look like I want to look like somebody owns me.
Listen, I know a lot of guys that.
But I mean, like,
they do that. They don't get married because they don't want to get married, and I'm gonna get.
I get that. No, I get that because my parents. My mom's been through. I hate to say this, but she's been through 2, marriages, and like I get it. Like marriage is marriage sometimes, but.
Well, then how do you combat the thought of like, because I do subscribe to this. I think if you're not willing to marry the woman, you genuinely in your heart of hearts don't love her. I'll give you an example. For my marriage, we don't have a prenup. And luckily for me, Brunilda is very successful. So I don't have to necessarily worry about these things. She makes her own money, boo-boo, right? Yeah. But, in the future, that climate might change. We might have more kids. She might be a stay-at-home mom and all these other things. But this was always like a calculus that I didn't overthink. I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to marry her and I'm not going to worry about any of these things because this is the person that I love and she's going to be a fantastic mom. Like this was just so natural to me. But I do see this. I don't know if women realize they're shooting themselves in the foot so bad with this like feminist movement of like, if he's not providing all the things that he should be, leave him. Because when you shit on the sanctity of marriage in this way, marriage is a social contract that only has value if we all agree that it is valuable. The second we no longer say that this actually means anything, like when we do our vows, when we say the things that we're supposed to say, and we no longer own up to the words that we're actually spewing, then why say them at all? Yeah. Like, what is this union under God if we don't believe in God? What is this holy matrimony, right? I mean, I know that there's marriages outside of the church, fantastic, that are still recognized by the state. But like similarly, I think no fault divorce is insane. You can just leave someone that you vowed to be with them in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, till the end of your days. And then we introduce a byline that allows you to divorce for no reason. Like, listen, if he's being a domestic abuser, by all means. Yeah. If he's, I'm trying to think about anything else I would say. domestic abuser, if he's like cheating on you, by all means, like if there's a reason for it, I'm not saying that women should be in marriages that they don't want to be in. Fine. But I am saying that if you married someone and they're trying their best and you loved them at one point, you can't just leave them. Like why did you get married to them?
Yeah, I 1000% agree. I think marriage has become like, we get married, we get divorced. I mean, there's people my age that have been married 3 times already, right? Like, I'm like, I haven't even been married once.
Jesus. That's like Jordan numbers. They're just collecting rings.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, so I as much as I say that, like, if someone were to come along and be like, I don't really
do you say something though? Like when they get divorced and stuff like that, like, because I feel
there's nobody in my circle.
Oh, just people you know of.
Yeah.
Know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if I had like a guy that was like getting married and like divorcing, getting married, divorcing, I'd be like, hey brother.
No, we would not be this.
Work on yourself for a little bit. Have you thought about not getting divorced?
Yeah, no, but I just, that brings up the other topic of like people being faithful. Like, I feel like that's why marriage is just so, I don't even know. It's a whole nother world out there. And that's what's scary. It's very scary.
Here's what I will say. I can honestly understand that there's different strokes for different folks. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, this is going to sound so bad. If you're a cuck and your thing is watching your woman get it with another man, and that is like the relationship that you two have, and she loves you, you love her.
Yeah, that's what
you guys just have this like sexual fetish.
Yeah.
Do your thing, boo boo, right? I'm all for that. But it's like we're making it like if it doesn't fit this narrow purview of what marriage should be, we should just cut it off. And I'm like, or maybe this thing can be malleable, maybe it can move a little bit, maybe it can shift a little bit. It's like it is a lot of work. My wife will tell you right now that being with me is probably the hardest thing she's ever done and the most fulfilling thing she's ever done. And I'm sure that would be the case. If she had her own podcast, it'd be like, Ariane's a dumbass. But I love him.
Bless her heart.
I would never think about leaving. I mean, it would have to take a lot. It would have to take a lot. That is not a golden pass. I'm just saying. Don't be like, oh, I get one. No. It doesn't work that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I think when you find your person, and that's the whole thing, you connect and you're like, hey, this is the relationship we're having. If you sign up for something that you have specific interests and they're like, cool, I'm on board with you. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's your relationship. That's what your marriage entails. But like, I am just want a normal, I wouldn't say normal. I want a just traditional, you love each other, you're there for each other, it's just you two.
Do you think monogamy is dead?
It scares me, yes.
I don't know a single, outside of me, holla, I don't know a single like happy, loving marriage.
Yeah. I will tell you that is one thing I'm blessed with and at my work is that specific people on my team that I see every day that I'm friends with are loving husbands. And that gives me hope. Because I'm like, I work with you every single day. I'm around you all the time. You're not with your wife. I see that you're still a respectful male. Like that very much gives me hope. But outside of the people that I work with, because they're, I work with some.
How old are these people? Is it like a range or like, is it older men, younger men?
I would say the two I'm talking about, one's 25. The other one is probably around my age. He's been married for 10 years plus.
Okay, so like it's not necessarily isolated to like there's two guys, they're both 40. You're like, oh shit, like that's the previous generation.
No, I just that gives me hope very much. And like I, knowing like my brothers and like that gives me hope. But like just the other people in the rest of the world, I'm like it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie. Here's to monogamy and
cheers.
Solid pee-pee.
Cheers to that.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I know that this was a little nerve-wracking beforehand. I hope it wasn't that bad.
No.
Okay.
No.
I know you were a little nervous. Like, when are you going to ask me?
Yeah. I'm like, am I still going to have a job?
I think we navigated just well. I like to end episodes with, I say this, but I've missed like half of our guests on this one, so forgive me, guys. I like to ask people, what is one part of, like, what is a parting piece of wisdom that you would give to a younger Jaclyn Difranco or the next generation? Something that you've learned in your life through some of the more traumatic periods, or perhaps some of the good, like the finer periods, but something that you wish you would have learned when you were, or wish you would have known when you were 18, 19, 20.
I'd say the biggest thing is that, like we were talking about mindset. I'm huge on mindset. And ever since I started learning like gratitude, practicing gratitude and like even the worst moments, like having that perspective of like, okay, something terrible just happened, but I'm grateful that this didn't happen, or I'm grateful now that I have the perspective to learn from this and implement my life in a better way. Like, that's really what has completely changed my life, is just having that gratitude side of things and knowing that a positive perspective is just going to get you, you know, as far as possible. And I know it's not like life is rainbows and unicorns and all the beautiful things, but when you look for the good, you see the good. When you look for the bad, you're going to see the bad. So it's really just having that mindset.
I love it.
Yeah.
Jaclyn Difranco.